Welcome back to The Critique. Today we are analyzing a Chicks on the Right transcript covering the Graham Allen and Candace Owens conflict, specifically the allegations regarding Charlie Kirk's widow, Erika.
Right. And there is a lot of heavy material here, so let's dive right in.
The placement and transition into the commercial sponsorship severely undermine the emotional gravity of the serious allegation.
It really does. I was reading through this, and the weakness is it's impossible to ignore.
Right.
You have the hosts deep in the weeds of character assassination. They're talking about demons, analyzing the alleged evilness of the situation, and then
immediately,
without a breath, they jump straight into endorsing the unbelievable softness of cashmere and linen dresses.
it's total emotional whiplash.
Complete.
You have the listener in this very dark, serious headspace. They're thinking about a grieving widow, betrayal, pedophilia accusations, even, and then snap, you are trying to sell them a jogging outfit.
Yeah, it creates a jarring juxtaposition that trivializes the heavy subject matter and totally disorients the listener.
Exactly. You can't pivot from pedophilia accusations to breathable fabric in 2 seconds and expect to maintain editorial credibility.
So our suggestion here is to implement a hard reset or a dedicated segmentation strategy for the advertisement. You have to preserve the integrity of the commentary.
Let's look at some concrete examples of how to do that. Right now, the transcript reads like a single stream of consciousness.
Right, blending the editorial and the commercial copy.
Yeah, so instead of pivoting from Candace craving attention directly to the hosts craving the softness of Quince, they need to insert a clear verbal bracket.
Something like, we need to take a pause before discussing Aaron's perspective.
Yes, literally acknowledge the shift. Stop the train.
Or they could use a distinct audio cue, a change in vocal tone or a musical sting to signal the shift, rather than just bleeding it all together.
And better yet, reorder the content entirely.
Oh, move in the ad spot.
Right, so the Quince ad should appear before the segment on Graham Allen's spiritual warfare, rather than being sandwiched right between the discussion of a widow's grief and getting the heebie-jeebies from casket photo.
That makes so much more sense. Keep the heavy emotional beats in one uninterrupted block, so you aren't asking the listener to toggle their empathy switch on and off.
Precisely. Let's move to the second major issue.
Okay.
The reliance on third-party vitriol and name-calling dilutes the substantive critique of the subject's alleged unethical behavior.
You are talking about the Ryan Fournier clips.
I am. The weakness here is that the segment aims to expose the tactics being used, but relies heavily on playing clips of others using extreme gendered slurs.
Right, words like cunt, bitch, calling her a disgusting human being, without any real editorial distancing.
And by doing that, they risk lowering themselves to the very level of character assassination they are supposedly criticizing.
It alienates neutral listeners who are just looking for a factual breakdown. If I hear that audio without a filter, I might just think everyone involved is toxic.
You lose the high ground immediately. So the suggestion is to frame these aggressive clips as evidence of professional fallout and bridge burning, rather than presenting them as the primary counterargument.
Turn the insults into data.
Yes. A concrete example of this, instead of playing the full string of expletives from Fournier, summarize his sentiment.
So the host could say something like, former colleagues like Ryan Fournier describe a pattern of using people for fame.
Exactly. And then you play a much shorter, less profane clip just to prove the point.
Or, if you have to discuss the extreme language, you pivot to the reason behind it, like with the Graham Allen comment about ulcers.
Right. Instead of lingering on the personal insult and laughing about the ulcer, pivot immediately to the reason he said it, which is the threat of her turning her audience against them.
Focused on the structural threat, the mob weaponization, rather than the funny symptom.
And if you do play a harsh clip, the host should explicitly state, while the language here is extreme, it highlights the intensity of the burned bridges. You have to maintain that editorial high ground.
That discipline really elevates a show from a gossip session to a genuine critique.
Which leads right into our third point about how the hosts position themselves in all of this.
The OG segment.
Yes. The host's self-referential claim to being the OGs of the controversy distracts from the immediate plight of the individuals involved.
The weakness is so apparent there. When they congratulate themselves for calling Candace batshit crazy back in October, saying, "Welcome to the party, pal," it completely shifts the focus.
It shifts it away from the victims like Graham Allen and Erika Kirk and puts it squarely onto the host's own track record.
It feels self-congratulatory. It diminishes the severity of the current spiritual warfare narrative they are trying to build.
If you are busy patting yourself on the back, you are not holding space for the people currently suffering. Plus, it comes off as arrogant to the listener who might just be discovering the issue.
So the suggestion is to reframe that historical context to validate the current situation rather than claiming credit for foresight.
Let's give a concrete example. Instead of saying we were the OGs, phrase it as, this behavior aligns with the patterns we observed last October, confirming that this is a long-standing issue.
That is a very subtle shift, but a powerful one. It positions them as experts analyzing a trend instead of just saying, I told you so.
Exactly. They need to completely remove that welcome to the party sentiment. Replace it with empathy for those who are just now realizing the extent of the conflict.
Focus on why it took others longer to speak out. Graham mentioned the fear of losing an audience.
Right. Analyze the mechanism of silence. Frame it as understanding the fear of retaliation that kept people quiet, rather than framed as the hosts being smarter or faster than the rest of the conservative ecosystem.
It invites the audience in instead of mocking them.
It really does. Now we need to discuss the most sensitive part of the transcript.
The defense of Erika Kirk.
The defense of Erika Kirk's controversial behavior is weakened by the hosts simultaneously validating the criticism against it.
This is about the video of her at Charlie Kirk's casket.
Yes, the weakness is that they are attempting to defend her against claims of being a groomer or using the death for propaganda.
But then they admit the video got them the heebie-jeebies and they found it distasteful.
Which inadvertently validates the premise that the behavior was abnormal.
It makes the defense feel completely lukewarm and contradictory. Once you say, yes, she shouldn't be attacked, but it was really weird.
You've lost the argument. You just handed ammunition to the people calling it demonic.
So the suggestion here is to separate personal aesthetic judgment from the moral defense of the widow's rights.
A concrete example of how to do this is to explicitly state, while the public grieving style may not be universal, the intent was clearly mourning, not propaganda.
You've acknowledged the stylistic difference, but shut the door on the moral judgment.
Exactly. I may have to avoid the I wouldn't have done it qualifier.
We hear that so much. It just serves to distance the host from the victim.
It's a vanity signal. Instead, focus on the unfairness of the attack. Focus on how unfair it was to question the friendship status of the woman recording the video, Stacey Sheridan.
Right. Debate the morality of a stranger analyzing a grieving circle rather than debating the camera angle.
Strengthen the argument by focusing on the core point. Erika is a widow and a mother whose husband was murdered.
Attacking her grieving process, regardless of how it looks on social media, is the core issue.
Prioritize the what over the how. The hosts got so distracted by the how of the video that they missed the chance to fiercely defend the what.
That seems to be the running theme here. Getting distracted by surface-level noise instead of sticking to the structural reality.
Whether it's the commercial break, the insults, the OG comments, or the widow's photos.
Just quickly circling back to that commercial break issue, because I think it ties into this idea of focus and audience trust.
It absolutely does.
When you are discussing spiritual warfare, a term that carries immense weight for this specific audience,
Huge weight.
treating it as just another segment block sandwiched between ads is almost disrespectful to the audience's worldview.
You have to treat the format with a level of reverence that matches the vocabulary.
And the same goes for the language. You can have a conversational, sassy brand without being a conduit for filth.
You can say someone got absolutely shredded without playing the clip of a gendered slur. It makes your argument look more powerful because you are relying on facts, not shock value.
It's about letting the gravity of the topic dictate the maturity of the show.
Which means knowing when to code switch. You can't use a fun, silly phrase like heebie-jeebies when discussing a widow clinging to a casket. The vocabulary betrayed the tone they needed to strike.
So let's recap the main takeaways for the listener to implement.
First, smooth out those jarring commercial transitions. Use hard resets to protect the emotional gravity of the piece.
Second, elevate the debate above pure name-calling. Summarize the vitriol as evidence of burned bridges, rather than relying on it for shock value.
Third, keep the narrative focused on the subjects, not the host's history. Validate the current situation instead of taking a victory lap.
And finally, clarify the moral defense of the widow. Separate aesthetic judgment from the court issue of a grieving mother being attacked.
These changes will completely transform the flow and the authority of the commentary.
We highly encourage the listener to refine the focus using these suggestions and submit the revised material for another review.
We look forward to reading the next iteration. Thanks for joining us for this critique.